Well, it's exciting to be on with you, Dirk, because again, China is no longer the sleeping dragon. China has been, in essence, the giant octopus that's been sucking the manufacturing, the materials, and also the manpower and technology away from the West for the past probably 20 years. And now we're dealing with a situation where China is exerting itself in the different oceans and contesting the United States for firepower, developing weapons that are quite candidly the best that we developed because they stole them from us or Bill Clinton gave them to them. So the thing is, most people don't understand the entire patent, even our top secret patents were given to the Chinese under Bill Clinton's reign. And you can actually find that on the internet. Not that everything you find on the internet is true, but I mean, it's very well researched, very well documented. But I think what people have got to understand is this. The dynamics have changed dramatically between China and India. They're fighting over the border region, what's called the Ladakh region, to about 2,100, 2,200 miles on their mutual border in the Himalayas. But what most people don't understand about this, it's India's prime intelligence gathering location for all of China. It's the United States NSA gathering station for all of China. It's also the Chinese on the other side of the ridge, they're gathering. So this is fighting for two things: intelligence gathering and water. You know, what's interesting, Derek, is the water that comes out of the Himalayas, obviously they're the highest mountains in the world, mountain range, and all the water that flows down. But China's running out of two things: food and fresh water. And obviously, India and China are the two most populous nations in the world. They've got pretty much equal population with maybe an exception of 100 million. But when you got 1.4 and 1.3 billion, that's pretty small. But the factors of this war that's going on there could spill out in a big way. For instance, not only is China now losing a lot of men and materials because people don't understand how high that is unless you're acclimated as the Indians are, and especially we've seen that with all of the Sherpas that climb, you know, for the Americans take them up on Mount Everest. I mean, the Chinese aren't set up to fight, and it's not Arctic warfare, it's mountain warfare, and they're running out of oxygen, literally. And trained mountain fighting, as the Indians who have occupied that, that's a big asset in their favor. Now, what's interesting is that while you and I are talking right now, and if I glance away, Derek, it's just because I've got stuff coming in real time for this show. I asked to be sent in. The Chinese have been moving all their frontline heavyweight bombers, fighters, and advanced weapons, including some of their hypersonic missiles, into their area they're occupying, just literally minutes away from India, and India is doing the same thing. For the first time in history, and none of this is going on for people they've got to understand, 5 Chinese aircraft jets were shot down by the Indians.
So, this is not something that's really registered on our radar here in the West.
No, it's being avoided because here's the thing. It's always the sleight of hand, the magician. He keeps you busy with the right hand, does all his magic with the left. The China files in the China lovers in our government, from Nancy Pelosi, obviously you can name anybody who was trying to lay the Russia hoax on Trump. You can probably bet that they have links and syncs with China, especially, oh, good night, Senator Dianne Frankenstein. You know, Dianne Frankenstein, had a Chinese driver for 20 years. And so the thing is that
a spy. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing that's interesting, Derek, is this is really a big deal because India is no slouch. India announced their hypersonic even today. And they basically test launch one of their hypersonic missiles 4,200 miles an hour with a fake nuclear warhead. Mm-hmm. Now, why this is critical is Three Gorges Dam, the largest dam in the world, is showing stress, and still the waters, the monsoon rains have not gone up. If and when that is either released by a weapon system, everybody's targeting Three Gorges Dam. That will take out 500 million people, take out 70% of China's manufacturing, and also what little they have left of produce. They do not have enough food to feed their people. And that's, if people will think back, the whole Mao revolution was basically he promised everybody a cup of rice. That's all he promised. Mm-hmm. And that's what overthrew him. So this is a really tense part now. And again, what I've learned, and you know this too, as you're looking as a newsman, as you are, you always look for those little things that don't add up, because the little things are what they don't want you to see, and then they don't want you to get the big picture. This basically circumvents a lot of, I would say this, the playpen mentality of modern political and also modern warfare, political warfare. So that's just what's going on in India and China. And I think people need to understand at the end of days, put whatever context, time period you want in that, it's going to be a war for resources, fresh water, fresh food. And maybe we can get to that in a minute, but that's just what's going on in China alone.
Yeah, China and India, two nuclear powers that have been contending for that region in the Himalayas for quite some time. But we've also got the tension between China and Taiwan, which China still considers part of its its territory, and the United States, the Western world, has aligned behind Taiwan, supporting Taiwan. So if things come to blows between Taiwan and China, will the United States be drawn into that mess?
Well, absolutely. And this is something I learned from some technology guys that were very much, movers and shakers in the integrated circuit world, that Taiwan is the world's supplier of advanced chips, okay? China produces their own, Japan produces, but every nation gets them ultimately from Taiwan. They have perfected the trade. Now, Taiwan took out a Chinese fighter last week, and they said it had malfunctioned. Today, they're reporting that a Chinese fighter, a J-20, hit a bird, and that the bird basically caused the plane to lose all control. This is funny, okay? We're talking about heavily armored planes, and basically crashed. The pilot ejected, and he ejected from a very low altitude. So the question is, who's taking down China's aircraft? Well, the answer to that is there are mutual, how do I say this, defense treaties now, and this blew my mind too, between Japan, India, and Taiwan. And Japan, most people think Japan is just basically, they bowed to the rising sun and got off they don't understand the technological excellence. Let me give you one example. In submarine warfare, the number one statement that people want, or the number one design parameter, is complete silence. The Japanese have achieved that even over the United States, the Russians, or the Chinese, and or the Indians, because of a new battery design. They can run their subs longer without recharging than any other nation, and they're virtually impossible to pick up. The other thing that people don't understand is China's defense treaty didn't keep them from modularizing advanced weapon systems. Modularizing just means you got everything you need to throw together to make, whether it's a nuclear weapon or some type of plasma weapon. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, the Japanese are the ones that perfected some of the most state-of-the-art robotics, and all of the advanced thought process have been kept off the radar due to defense treaties, etc. But Japan is basically letting China know that if they come into their airspace, and this is directly within the last 24 hours, I want everybody to understand this, Derek. This is stuff that came in 24 hours. This is stuff that I haven't even produced on my show, because I want you guys to have it first. And obviously, it is so critical that people get the lateness of the hour has almost become a cliche. That's like talking about too much government spending. Are you kidding me? They will spend to the end, So too much government spending, and the cliche is, everybody's going to hug, sing kumbaya, and the world's leading military mavens are just going to go quietly in the night. It isn't going to happen. So again, Japan is very well advanced. By the way, Japanese invented the transformers, and I'm not saying that with tongue in cheek, okay? The Japanese literally have the equivalent of transformers. Obviously, they're not sentient beings from the planet, whatever it is, that the transformers came from. What was it called? I forget. There's a planet. My kids used to tell me all this. Cybertron,
yeah,
okay?
Right.
Yeah, I remember Tyler. Okay, here I am. I'm what you say, technologically challenged with instructions. And I'm sitting here trying to put a transformer together. This is the early days, okay? And Tyler said, "Piece of cake, Dad." Whoosh, 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 whoosh. It's just like a Rubik cube. And I decided I will leave that technology to those who can handle it. But the point is the advancement. For instance, people don't understand that in one of the movies, I believe, of James Bond, where there's the volcano, where, that opens up and the top of it is fake. And I don't know if it was Dr. No, but it's one of the famous ones where he's flying on a gyrocopter, Sean Connery. They have that technology. Most of the countries around the world have what I would call advanced terrain technology, that they can literally open up the side of a mountain, open up a volcano that from the sky looks like, hey, it's a volcanic lake. So Japan is so far advanced that the Chinese, remember, the Chinese and Japanese have had a long history of, they don't like each other much.
That's right.
And so Japan is now in play. And what I think people need to get out of this broadcast is everything's being brought in. And like you, when I first came into this, I'm watching India and China closely because I know what was at stake with the water. When I first got saved 49 years ago, one of the first things the Lord shared with me, I shared it on my first talk radio program, one of the first 2 hours, KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado. I said the two most precious commodities in the end days before the return of Jesus Christ will be fresh water and food. And now the fresh water is becoming such a big deal that water wars, especially in the Middle East, are a big deal. Turkey is going after the water, especially in Syria, and China even overstepped its bounds in Russia because I think Lake Baikal in the Russian Federation has 20% of the Earth's fresh water. So fresh water is a big deal, So we're watching in my opinion, the setup for a war that will usher in the Antichrist, because if you and I are chess players and we're moving, in agreement, all the players, and it looks like, I've checkmated you or you've checkmated me. By the way, I don't play chess. The thing is that the minute you and I quit playing the game, those pieces don't move. That's all the devil's got to do to bring peace on the earth, then dazzle us with advanced technology. But here's the deal. At the end of the day, China was trying to build its Silk Road back into the Middle East and, has succeeded in some areas and had real issues in the others. But the Sino, how would we call this? The Chinese attempt at dominating the world, whether they're in South America, in Africa. And Derek, I talk to people, as I'm sure you do, all over the world that have been listening to me on shortwave. And when I make a statement like, man, you cannot believe the Chinese in Tanzania, okay? They call me and say, you're right. Or you can't believe the Chinese in Ensenada, or you can't believe the amount of Chinese in Hawaii. Now, everybody thinks, well, yeah, Hawaiians, close to China. No, there's more going on here. You can't believe the amount of Chinese in Canada. And, again, the problem is that when you have that much money, and if we ultimately, in my opinion, Americans, put our own small businesses out of business because we wanted to buy the cheapest stuff we could, and by supporting the largest retailer in the world, I'll just leave it at that, they got our capital, then they loaned the money back to us, and we've been paying China interest. And then they took some of our national parks as collateral. They took some of our most important water bodies as collateral. And George Bush, his son, and we'll leave it just as that. I have some more things to say about him. Of 9/11 fame, that George Bush basically gave him the right, the Chinese government, of eminent domain. That means if a Chinese bank owned your mortgage, my mortgage, and for the record, I got a mortgage, but it's not with China. I made sure of that. The bottom line is they can come in and say, leave, Yankee, own paper, Now, I'm not making any xenophobic ethnic slurs. I probably have studied the Chinese language. I don't speak it from the standpoint of it's the most unusual language in the world. They, as you know this, what my passion, your passion, our collective passion is ancient history. They believe they are the descendants of the dragon, okay? And the dragon, they have 126,000 characters that are pictograms. They're not letters, they're not consonants, they're not vowels. So as, one of the projects I talked about, it's progressed since we last talked on your show, is the deal is that we've taken all those, not me, the people that are smart enough to do this, run them through supercomputers and getting not only the modern day meaning of it, and some, by the way, I think over 2/3 of the Chinese isn't known to the average Chinese. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there, and some of that matches ancient history. so astonishing. And again, the largest yet defined pyramid on Earth is in China. It's 4 times the Great Pyramid of Egypt. Mm-hmm. So that's just a little cool tidbit that we can't let go, when the two of us get together. So that's just what's going on with China, Japan, and India. And now you throw in the United States, because we've been told point blank that, by a General Haotian, Haotian. Have you ever read his paper where he said that the Chinese foreign policy is to kill every man, woman, and child in the United States? Did you ever read that?
I haven't read the paper, but I've seen references to it.
Okay, yeah, I'd be glad to send it to you. The thing that people have got to understand is this, is that when bringing it into present terms and how it's relevant, you can't even say the name of a certain virus without getting kicked off, whatever platform.
Right.
I will be wise there. You can't even basically deal with the reality of biological weapons in that context. And Derek, the very first, Sharon and I have talked about this. This was written 20 years ago. Breathe No Evil. They don't exist anymore. This isn't a pitch for a book, but it was Tactical Guide to Biological and Chemical Terrorism 20 years ago. Novichok is a binary chemical weapon that was in the news recently, where they're trying to claim that that's what the FSB tried to kill the critic of Putin with. Well, Unfortunately, Novichok means newcomer, and they didn't do their homework. That's been around a long time. It was developed by the Russians to circumvent the chemical weapons ban treaty of 20, 30 years ago. So the thing that's important in this is understanding that allegiances, alliances, and former assumptions are out the window now. And you were at Branson when I said the word normal will never be again. I see that statement now showing up and I'm smiling. We're not going back to normal. Everything we've known as normal will never be. And so, again, I want people to understand something. We're being, and I call it this, you're going to love this, theatricus, distracticus, absurdicus. Okay, that's like some wannabe Roman emperor. But the bottom line is it's the theater of the absurd distracting us. And so what's critical is to bring all these disparate parts together and say, okay, where's that missing piece that ties, all of the puzzle together? And that's what I think we're trying to give to people today. I think it is some of the missing pieces.
So bringing this around, not just to a bottom line as we look at China, but also then to tie this to your upcoming Final Warning virtual conference, the 16th and 17th of October. What should we be looking for in China, and what sort of information will your speakers next weekend be bringing, which includes Tom Horn, Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis, who's written extensively about Russia and China, Dave Hodges, Gerald Celente, Mike Adams, Lisa Haven, and others. What is the bottom line here that we should be looking for in the relations with China?
The takeaway from all the speakers pretty much is what they would tell people if they only had this shot at the mic, okay? This was their last shot at the mic. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying what would they tell people? I specifically asked Tom because I'm going to be addressing the alien appearance, and Tom did a marvelous job. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Horn's presentation, I'm not just saying this because I love him. I'm not just saying this because he's a gifted man, but I'm telling you, the most concise, and I'm going with my jaw dropping open, the most concise presentation from start to finish, from Exo Vaticana, obviously the work he and Chris Putnam did, the Mount Graham, all the way forward to how it's going to play out. I happen just to be, because it was gifted to me by someone in the know how it's all going to play out. And it's going to envelop some of the most, or contain some of the most advanced technology. So what's going to be the takeaway from this is this is what you need to watch. We're there. I guess, Derek, the bottom line is, if the takeaway is it's not any longer linear, it's like a reactor with all the rods going into it. Each perspective, each speaker has their own perspective they bring to it. The things that they're good in, the things they've written about, the things that obviously Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis is, we went down to film him for this conference in Jackson Hole. And I can talk for a long time, and if I would have had 10 hours, I could have kept him going, but we had to cut it. But what a fascinating man. So every one of these people that's a speaker has, I guess you'd say, their individual perspective. But at the end of the day, it's all coming together in the middle. And I'm serious when I say this. The reason the 16th and 17th were chosen, the number 17 in the Bible speaks about preservation in the midst of judgment. And there's a fight going on in Christendom. Do people really believe God says what he means and means what he says when it comes to judging nations that absolutely not only break his laws, but basically break his heart? And so there's so much of that going on that right now it's hard for people. Look, when you've got the fire nados like a tornado on the West Coast, when you've got, the biggest fire in California's history, when you've got the cities burning, isn't it interesting? The cities burning and the fires in the woods burning, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But here's one thing that people leave out. When people tell me, well, what are your thoughts on Los Angeles? I said, well, I think it's a great named city. They just forgot one word. And it should be, instead of City of Angels, City of Fallen Angels. And it's interesting because there was even a Hollywood movie with Nicolas Cage where they got that point across, and that Nicolas Cage and other fallen angels decided to move to L.A. because that's where they could be with the women of their desire, and I'll leave it at that. It was a real movie. So the thing that I think people need to have a takeaway is this. We use a word like final, and final warnings. I know that Dana Coverstone in his prophecies basically was talking about brace for impact. Tom, in his work of bracing for impact, we're talking about the impact of wormwood. We're talking even now in the next couple of days, if you notice, ladies and gentlemen, every single asteroid that's being named, numbered, and identified, and that's just the ones that are identified, not the ones that are behind the scene that they don't want to tell us about, are coming closer and closer and closer. So I believe that the asteroids and, all of the heavenly signs are basically coalescing, coming together, saying, you got trouble really soon. We've got a blue moon, that's going to be seen worldwide for the first time, I think, since 1944 or something. And so it's going to be seen worldwide. It used to be you could only see the moon in different parts of the world, just like a solar eclipse. But now this one's going to be seen worldwide. So I would say the signs in the sky are saying things are going to be totally different. Things are changing. The lockdown during the disease, okay, I'll just call it, let's say this, the disease with question mark, has destroyed the American economy. But if people remember, we started as the United States by putting a bunch of embargoes on China, and they said they would do something to retaliate. 166,000 businesses shutting down. Half or 60% of the restaurants in New York City are shutting down, never to open again. I don't think most people understand this, Derek, but the majority of people in cities, the working people, eat out at least one meal a day.
Right.
I didn't know the number that I'm going to give to you right now, but I didn't know this. 60% of all food grown, all livestock raised, all food canned, processed, goes to restaurants to accommodate that position of the population, or that portion of the population that eats out every day, or used to.
Yeah. Well, as we're seeing an exodus from major cities, San Francisco, New York are seeing real estate values plummet, just a record number of vacancies in office buildings as people flee for this. One of the interesting side effects of this, or consequences of all of this, is that because of high-speed internet, we're able to do things such as what we're doing right now. But a lot of people are finding out that they don't need to live in places like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle anymore, because they can work long distance via the internet, at least until that gets shut down. But 2020 has turned out not to be anything like what any of us expected. And certainly these things that have taken place here in the United States have kind of grabbed our attention. We're fixated on the presidential election, on the effects of the virus, and we're not paying attention to these things happening in Southeast Asia, the tensions building between India, Taiwan, and China, even Russia and China not getting along as well as they were before. And all of this information that we need so that we can see where we are on this road and take advantage of the time that's left to share the hope that we have in Christ Jesus with the friends, family members, colleagues, coworkers that we come into contact with each day. That information coming next weekend, the virtual conference, Final Warnings from Gen 6 Productions. Steve, where do people find out more and sign up for the conference?
They can go to Gen6, GENSIX.com. They can go on my website, stevequayle.com, and even on Skywatch, there's a banner there. It says Final Warning. Click on it. It's a 2-minute, a 1-minute showing you the speakers and stuff. Really well done. And you know what I miss, Derek? I miss having you as the MC and me being able to, I do miss that. I'm sorry that we can't do it. And I think what you just said is going to become more, how should I say this, pertinent than any of us imagine. My feeling is that in order to control masses, that the powers that be, the devils that are, the Illuminists, Globalists, call them whatever you want, but they will do their best to make sure people can't get together as groups and basically form any type of active rebellion. And they're already doing it. Not even rebellion, just to praise God. You a Christian? To the camps. And I think Christians had better, how should I say this, ask the Lord for a baptism of reality. I kid. I said, and I used to do it at Branson. I used to have that bowl of water there because I was afraid if I started to get sleepy, I would basically just pour it over my head. I had a towel and just go on, Probably let the electronics, but I was ready to do that. And the thing is that I don't think people understand that our old way of life, our old way of doing things is over. And I know that sounds really final. And people say, there are no such things as absolute. You can't make that absolute statement. I said, well, you just made an absolute statement. I'm telling you, I know the Bible by the grace of God. I don't know it as well as others. I don't know it as well as some. But I know the nature of God. I know the heart of God. And I understand. He says, you do this, you'll be blessed. You do this, you won't. Ethnos against ethnos, the uprising between black and white, that shouldn't be. I mean, we had really good race relationships building in a way that had been unparalleled until the Obama nation of desolation came on the scene as president, in my opinion. You see now the denigration of Christianity, that you can have any riots with hundreds of thousands of people, but of course there's no passing of the virus in that. But, people singing worship songs. And I want people to understand this. And this is my plea. Thank you for this time. Is you must stand up. You must speak up. Look at what's happened. The Michigan people in Michigan, the voting public, got tired of Christy Whitmer passing all this unconstitutional rules. And now the Supreme Court, a federal court, one of the courts has ruled against her over enforcement of COVID-19. And ladies and gentlemen, let me give you Quayle's simple equation. Shut you down, shut you up. Shut you up, shut you off. And so they want to shut down, shut up, and shut off. It sounds like to me like the Smithsonian when we deal with them about giants, cover up, cover over, and get away. So, Derek, this is what's at stake. This is why Final Warning, brace for impact. And here's what brace for impact means. I used to race cars, run cars, and just be crazy, okay? I'm less crazy, but I still like the horsepower. But when you know you're going to roll it, when you know you're going over, when you know you're going to hit something, another car's going to hit you, you brace for impact. You tighten up, you make sure, even in the race, your 5-point racing harness, is as tight as it is. You make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be. And you're thinking, what happens? Well, when you're able to drive out of something, this is something we have to brace for impact for, brothers and sisters. And there's no driving out of it. God has to be the driver in our front seat of our lives. And he's the only one that can steer us through this course of madness, of sadness. And that's going to be, how should I say this, breathtakingly bad.
Well, this may be an opportunity for the church to get back to its roots. I had a discussion with some friends the other day about this, and we're asking, what will happen if the Democrats win the White House in November, which is a possibility. But the first century church survived emperors like Tiberius and Nero and Claudius and Caligula, none of whom were friendly to Christianity. Later in the first century, some of the persecutions that took place were brutal. Even as late as the late 3rd century, some of the persecutions imposed by Galerius and Diocletian were some of the worst ever. But the church survived. And in fact, theologically, spiritually, it was stronger. If things continue to go this way, what we may be seeing is God saying, okay, look, kindergarten is over. It is now time for boot camp. And we need to be prepared for that. Be prepared for not just a shutting down of transportation and communication, perhaps the internet as well. Perhaps we are about to go back into the virtual catacombs like the church of 2,000 years ago. But final warnings, brace for impact, the virtual conference from Gen 6 Productions. You can find out more at stevequayle.com or gen6.com. That's October 16th and 17th of 2020. We've got more from Steve Quayle later this week with another special, and we thank you for watching. Thank you, Steve, for joining us today, and we look forward to talking with you again real soon about digital currency and the implications thereof.
Thank you, Derek.
And we thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is Skywatch TV.
A child who is trafficked is sexually abused on average 5 to 15 times a day, and only 1% of these crimes are ever reported. This unimaginable darkness must be stopped. And right now, we want to invite you to join us in the fight to end child sex trafficking. Skywatch TV is proud to announce the Silent Cry Help the Children package. When you order the groundbreaking new feature documentary movie Silent Cry from film visionary Josh Peck, you'll learn firsthand from the world's most renowned experts in the fields of trafficking, pedophilia, and Satanism how Hollywood elites are actively engaged in the sexual exploitation of children, why the mainstream media and culture are attempting to normalize pedophilia, why we can't depend on the government to eradicate this ever-present evil, and what the risks are to you, your family members, and communities. Plus, the lead authorities from the Silent Cry movie are back in the never-before-released Covert Investigation on DVD, featuring pivotal, never-before-seen commentaries that couldn't be included in the original Silent Cry film. From cases of demonic possession to satanic perversion, experts on the front lines discuss the worst crimes fathomable being committed against the most innocent amongst us. You'll also receive the brand new MP3 audio series on CD, A Cult of Perversion. In this explosive series, experts like Russ Dizdar, William Ramsey, and others share extremely sensitive research into the most perverse evils plaguing our country now, proving through over 12 hours of content that believers must combat this spiritual malevolence for the sake of our children. This incredible package also includes the never-before-released DVD Fake News or Hidden Truths. Join investigative researcher Stephen Bancars as he guides you through the most current research into the Pizzagate scandal. Is it all conspiracy? Who is involved? How does it pertain to events unfolding right now? Stephen shares explosive new revelations on the subject that have come to light since Pizzagate first broke and haven't been revealed to the public until now. Finally, the paradigm-shattering audio series by Dr. Thomas Horn himself, The Hidden Occultism of Epstein's Orgy Island. What demonic atrocities were going on at Epstein Island? And who were the high-powered individuals involved in some of the darkest occultic activities the world has ever witnessed? The contents of this mind-boggling 3-part exclusive MP3 audio series comes directly from the private vault of Dr. Thomas Horn. Sold separately, these items hold a retail value of $135. Yours now for your donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling while supplies last. An excess of 500,000 children are being trafficked every single day in our country alone. Now is the time to take action. 100% of the profits from your donation for the Silent Cry Help the Children package goes directly to Whispering Ponies Ranch, a safe haven where children who have been abused in unimaginable ways can find rehabilitation and healing in Jesus Christ. The Silent Cry Help the Children package, available now at skywatchtvstore.com. Order now or call 1-844-750-4985.